You probably know Attorney General Merrick Garland testified in front of the House Judiciary Committee today. Jim Jordan, Republican from Ohio, is the chairman. And it was interesting. Usually Garland and Christopher Wray, the head of the FBI, and all the other federal Justice Department people tell you they can't comment because there's an investigation underway. That's not what Garland did today. Garland did the Sergeant Schultz defense. I know nothing. Remember Hogan's Heroes? Remember? Big chubby Sergeant Schultz looking away on purpose? I don't know. That was Merrick Garland. Here's how he explained it. He said that he told Senator Grassley, a Republican, that he wouldn't intrude or interfere with the Hunter Biden investigation. Okay? Because some Republicans were worried that Merrick Garland would tilt it away. So Garland goes, oh, I didn't have anything to do with it. Okay? It was all David Weiss, the U.S. attorney in Delaware, full power. But I didn't know what was happening. Okay? It was him. I promised they wouldn't get involved. Now, on the surface, it's pretty clever because every specific question, Garland says, I don't know. I wasn't following it. I don't know. I didn't hear about statute of limitations. I don't know. All right? But it falls apart. Now, I'm going to tell you why. All right? So that was what Garland's posture was. He didn't know. The House Republicans missed opportunities. I told Hannity on a radio show today, on his radio show, next time it should be Jordan, Hannity, and me interviewing Merrick Garland. No one else. Okay? Because we'd ask the specific questions that he couldn't pull that on. For example, you don't have to intrude, Mr. Attorney General, but you do have to provide oversight. So say you appoint David Weiss to investigate Hunter Biden, and Weiss is drunk every day. What are you going to do? You don't know that? You're not watching what's happening there? Or he doesn't show up for work? Or whatever it may be. The Attorney General is the boss. He doesn't have to tell Weiss, charge him with this, charge him with that, but he certainly has to provide oversight. Garland said he didn't provide any oversight. When asked why it took almost 5 years to bring stupid charges, and they were, that got thrown out by a judge against Hunter Biden, oh, I don't know. And that is the key. And just remember that. All right, let me play you 3 sound bites. First one is Congressman Mike Johnson, Louisiana, and they're talking about the length of this Hunter Biden investigation. Go.
Why has the Justice Department dragged this investigation out for so long? Does it really take years to determine if Hunter Biden lied on a federal form related to purchasing a firearm?
Mr. Weiss was a long-time career prosecutor. President Trump appointed him as the...
You're not answering the question. Is that standard procedure? Should it take that long to make such a simple determination?
I'm answering the question. Give me an opportunity to do so.
Okay.
He was charged with that investigation under the previous administration. He's continued. He knows how to conduct investigations, and I have not intruded or attempted to evaluate that.
He hasn't attempted to evaluate it. I mean, that's so absurd when you think about it. This is the top law enforcement official in the country. The president's son is being investigated for felony corruption, and he hasn't evaluated it. He should be fired on the spot. Second soundbite. Congressman Dan Bishop, North Carolina, picks up on the length of the investigation, how it affects the statute of limitations. Go.
When did the Justice Department permit statutes of limitations to expire on some of the prospective charges against Hunter Biden for tax violations?
I don't know anything about the statute of limitations here. The investigation was in the hands of Mr. Weiss to make the determinations that he thought were appropriate.
Are you unaware that statutes of limitations have in fact been allowed to expire after there having been tolling agreements in place?
I'm going to say again, the determination of where to bring cases and which kinds of cases to bring was left to Mr. Weiss.
So no oversight at all. Garland didn't know. Sergeant Schultz, I know nothing. Okay? And throwing Weiss under the bus. Weiss is going to have the noose, all right, when it comes down to the end of this. Third soundbite is, again, the same mantra. Garland must have said Trump appointed Weiss a dozen times because that's the Democratic talking point. All right. So here's the chairman, Jim Jordan. Go.
Quote, Mr. Weiss has full authority to bring cases in other jurisdictions if he feels it's necessary. That was your response, Attorney General, to Senator Grassley's question on March 1st, 2023. You just referenced it when Mr. Bishop was questioning you. Only problem is he'd already been turned down by the U.S. Attorney in the District of Columbia, Mr. Graves. So he didn't have full authority, did he?
I had an extended conversation with Senator Grassley at the time. We briefly touched on the Section 515 question and how that process went. I've never been suggested.
My point's real simple, Mr. Garland. You said he had complete authority, but he'd already been turned down. He wanted to bring an action in the District of Columbia, and the U.S. Attorney there said, no, you can't. And then you go tell the United States Senate under oath that he has complete authority.
I'm going to say again that no one had the authority to turn him down. They could refuse to partner with him. They could not.
You can use whatever language. Refuse to partner is turning down.
Well, it's not the same under a well-known Justice Department practice.
Oh, just Barney Fife. That's who that guy reminds me of, to do the sitcom motif. Well, here's the truth. U.S. Attorneys Matthew Graves in D.C. and Martin Estrada in California refused to help David Weiss. Okay? Merrick Garland could have ordered them to help David Weiss. He did not. He did not order them. All right? He had to know they refused to help because it was all over. He had to know, and Garland did nothing. All right? That's not full authority, so Garland's not telling the truth. He goes, oh, well, they can refuse to partner. It's just garbage. And this is why people think the government's corrupt, because it is. Garland is a corrupt man. It's right on display. There's two sides to that story. He's being deceptive, Garland. Now, I believe Garland. I believe him when he says, I don't know anything. Because he knew from the jump, when he took the Attorney General job, that Hunter Biden was under scrutiny. And he didn't want any part of this radioactive case at all. Because Biden appointed him to the position of Attorney General. So he said, I don't want to hear anything. I don't want to know anything. Don't tell me anything. All right? I'm almost 100% sure Garland's not lying about that. But here is the final nail, and I couldn't believe the Republicans didn't ask him this. Garland had to sign off on the plea bargain that was thrown out by the judge. Garland is a former judge. He had to know the clause in the plea agreement, the initial plea agreement, that said, you, the federal government, cannot prosecute Hunter Biden for any other crimes the rest of his life, was never going to fly. Garland had to sign off on that plea. He couldn't recuse himself. That's the final nail in this deceptive man's coffin. And that's the memo. All right, let's bring in Thomas Baker. You may have heard the name. He's the author of the best-selling book, The Fall of the FBI, How a Once Great Agency Became a Threat to Democracy. Mr. Baker was an FBI agent for 33 years, served all over the world, a very distinguished career. I want to get very specific with you. I'm sure you agree with me that Merrick Garland is not Elliot Ness. He's not trying to find the truth about anything that would affect the Biden family. You're agreeing with that, right?
Yes, and it's very frustrating.
Okay, it's sad. It's sad for this country. But the FBI, now I've had an ongoing disagreement with Chris Cuomo on News Nation, and I'll be on there again tonight. Cuomo claims the FBI has been vigorously investigating Hunter Biden. I say there's no trace the FBI has been involved in that investigation at all. Who's right?
Well, I think you're right. It cannot be, at least up till this point, be called vigorous by any means. And I think one of the congressional sound bites you played, where the congressman was trying to get at the point of how long this was taking, is very significant. It's inordinate. We're talking 2, 3, and in some instances, some aspects of it, 5 years this has been dragging on. And the one charge that came forward a week ago now, the gun charge, is so clear-cut, is so cut and dry, that charge could have been brought forward 2 or 3 years ago. But not only that, it's almost an indefensible charge. I mean, it's literally black and white. He lied on a government form he signed, the gun purchase. So that was a simple case that could have been brought forward 3 or 4 years ago.
Okay, but you wrote a book, about the FBI. Have you heard anything, any field office, Baltimore, anybody that got agents actively trying to find out what Hunter Biden did or did not do, and if any money passed along to his father? Have you heard a whiff about that?
Bill, here's what I wrote the book because I was concerned about the changing culture of the FBI that has led it into all these problems they have today. And this case is another manifestation of it. They had the laptop, it's almost 5 years now, but they had the laptop very early on. They have the technical expertise beyond any shadow of a doubt to tell within days, if not within hours, the legitimacy and the accuracy of the laptop. And they so determined, we know that now for a fact, and yet it was allowed to go by in intelligence offices, including one, Lisa Monaco, who had been the chief of staff to Bob Mueller at the FBI, and now she is the deputy attorney general. She is the one, and the emails have been made public, sending around the emails with this guy Merrill from the CIA, asking these other 51 people to sign on. She's now the deputy attorney general.
Yeah. Well, I know about the politics. We all know how rotten the politics are. But there were 170 reports from banks flagging transitions that were suspicious, financial deposits and things like that were suspicious. 170, all right, from the Biden family were flagged 170 times. The FBI doesn't seem to have looked into any of them.
Well, that's most shocking at all, and that's one of the really concrete pieces, and I'll call it evidence, that exists that warrants proceeding with the investigation not only of Hunter Biden, but of his father, now the incumbent president. A suspicious activity report, this is something that financial institutions, and not just banks, but brokerages and others, are required to file when they believe there is suspicious activity. And in numerous cases, and you can ask anybody in the FBI, the DEA, anybody, often one suspicious activity report is all the probable cause you need to open a money laundering case, a drug trafficking case, or numerous financial fraud investigations. One, to have 176 involving the Biden family. And then we now know, separate and corroborating that they set up these 20-some dummy paper companies to run money through. I mean, this reeks to high heavens, and this should be jumped on with both feet. But yet it's dragged on.
Are you certain the FBI didn't look into this? Because all of the things that we've just talked about were revealed by the House investigators in Congress, not the federal government.
Oh, no, some of it was looked into, but these roadblocks, whether administratively within the FBI, maliciously within the FBI, or in the Department of Justice, or in one of the U.S. Attorney's offices, up to and including the Attorney General, are slowing everything down. Specifically, last fall, one FBI agent, an assistant agent in charge in the Washington field office, was let go by Chris Wray because he had been essentially burying and deep sixing the investigation around the laptop, and that's all well documented now.
So Wray fired him because he was trying to obscure the laptop. So in this case, Wray did the right thing. But my overall question, and I don't know whether you know or not. If you don't know, I mean, you don't know. I don't think the FBI under Christopher Wray was involved with anything in trying to get information about the Biden family. That's the way it looks to me as a journalist.
Well, it's certain. Well, with very good reason, because as the congressman said today, so much time has gone by.
Well,
I mean,
so what?
Complex take a lot of time, but this is inordinate. And what Chris Wray did there with that one individual last fall, he's done in other instances where malfeasance has come to the surface. He's fired the individual or let individuals resign. In some cases, both things have happened. And he always says when he testifies before Congress or he speaks to a group, including groups of former agents, he always says, in so many words, we've gotten rid of the rotten apples. That was his response to the Durham report, which documented in great detail the lack of any predicate information to start
I don't trust Wray at all. I don't trust Garland. I think the Justice Department we don't have one anymore. The book is The Fall of the FBI, How a Once Great Agency Became a Threat to Democracy by Thomas Baker. Mr. Baker, thanks for being with us today. We appreciate it.